The bright stage lights glimmered like 1,000 suns, bouncing off the silver trimmings of the young Filipino teen's white Elvis-style suit. The vast AG arena was alive with restless energy, filled with strangers from all walks of life waiting for the next act. Backstage, behind the heavy velvet curtain, the boy stood motionless for a moment, trying to steady his breath. His hands shook slightly as he rubbed the small silver microphone pendant around his neck, a gift from his mother that had always given him strength. His name was Miguel, 15 years old, a simple boy from the Philippines who had grown up listening to old Elvis records with his late grandfather. Those records became his escape from the noise of poverty and the loneliness of being far from home. And now, somehow, he was standing on one of the biggest stages in the world. He could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation from the audience beyond the curtain. Every giggle, every whisper felt like a wave of doubt crashing into his fragile confidence. He tugged lightly at his collar, feeling the heat of the stage lights even before stepping into them. A stagehand signaled that it was his turn. Miguel inhaled deeply, forcing a smile that barely held together, and stepped out. The first thing he noticed was the overwhelming brightness. It felt like the sun had exploded in front of him. Thousands of faces faded into a blur, and in the center, 4 judges sat behind a glowing table. Simon Cowell leaned back with his usual unreadable expression, his hand resting beneath his chin. Sofia Vergara whispered something to Heidi Klum, who laughed softly. Howie Mandel smiled encouragingly, but Miguel could sense that mixture of curiosity and doubt in their eyes. He clutched his microphone tighter, hoping it would steady the tremor in his hands. The host gave him a nod and a thumbs up from the side, a small gesture that meant the world in that instant. Miguel's throat felt dry, and his heart pounded so hard that he thought the microphone might pick it up. Simon leaned forward and said, "Alright, tell us your name." Miguel's voice came out quiet but sincere. "My name is Miguel," he said, pausing for breath. "I'm 15 and I'm from the Philippines." The audience clapped politely and Sofia smiled warmly. "And what are you going to sing for us today?" Heidi asked, tilting her head. Miguel's lips curved into a small, nervous smile. "An Elvis Presley song," he said. That earned a few chuckles from the audience. Some people leaned to whisper to each other, amused by the sight of a shy Filipino boy dressed like the king of rock and roll. Miguel lowered his eyes, pretending not to notice, but the laughter stung. Still, he remembered his mother's words before he left for Los Angeles. "Don't let their laughter break you an act. Let it remind you how beautiful it is to surprise them." He took another deep breath as the piano intro began. His hand found the pendant again, squeezing it tightly. The lights dimmed, focusing on him. In that second the whole world went silent in his mind. Then he opened his mouth and began to sing. From the very first note something magical happened. The laughter, the whispers, even the restless energy of the hall seemed to vanish. Miguel's voice poured out, warm and rich, carrying both the nostalgic tone of Elvis and a deep, soulful ache uniquely his own. His accent softened the words beautifully, giving the old song new life. The camera zoomed in on Simon Cowell, whose skeptical smirk had melted into genuine surprise. Sofia's eyes widened and Heidi leaned forward, completely captivated. Miguel closed his eyes as he sang, lost in the music. It wasn't about impressing anyone now. It was about the story behind every lyric, the years of dreaming, the times he sang barefoot on the streets of Manila, pretending to be on a big stage just like this one. As he reached the chorus his voice soared higher, trembling with emotion. The crowd began to shift from quiet awe to loud cheers. Some people stood up, clapping along. Miguel didn't even notice he was somewhere else entirely, inside the world of his song. Backstage, his mother watched through tears, her hands clasped tightly together. She had always told him that music would take him places their poverty never could. And now, seeing her son under those lights, she whispered a prayer of gratitude. Simon turned slightly, muttering under his breath, "Unbelievable." The boy's small frame seemed to hold an enormous soul. When he hit the final note, a long, trembling note that carried pure heartbreak and power, the arena froze for a moment. The silence that followed was the kind that only true awe can create. Then, as if a wave had crashed, the audience erupted. Everyone stood clapping and cheering, tears streaming down more than a few faces. Sofia covered her mouth, visibly emotional. Miguel stood still, breathing hard, tears beginning to form in his eyes as he realized what had just happened. As the applause thundered, Sofia slowly rose from her chair. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at Simon, then back at Miguel, whose face shone with innocence and disbelief. "You are incredible," she said, her voice cracking. "That was one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard." Miguel's lips parted, but no words came out. He could only nod, smiling through his tears. Simon leaned forward, his tone unusually gentle. You came out here in that suit and I wasn't sure what to expect," he said. "But the moment you started singing it was like Elvis' spirit came alive again, through you." The crowd cheered even louder. Miguel's chest tightened, his heart overflowing with gratitude. Then Sophia looked at the other judges, then back at Miguel. "You know what?" she said softly, and her hand began to hover over the golden buzzer in front of her. The audience began to scream in anticipation, chanting, "Press it, press it." Miguel's eyes widened, realizing what might happen. And then, with a wide, tearful smile, Sophia slammed the buzzer with both hands. In an instant golden confetti exploded from above, raining down on the stage like 1,000 blessings. The lights turned golden, swirling around Miguel as the music of victory filled the arena. He dropped to his knees, covering his face in disbelief. His mother ran from backstage, tears streaming as she wrapped her arms around him. "You did it, Anak," she cried, holding him tight. "You made them see you." Miguel sobbed into her shoulder, unable to speak. The confetti stuck to his hair and suit, making him look like he was glowing under the golden storm. Simon smiled softly, a rare moment of emotion flickering across his face. "That," he said quietly, "is why we do this show." Haiti clapped, her eyes wet with tears, while Howie shouted, "You're gonna be a star, kid." The crowd chanted his name, Miguel, Miguel, as the cameras zoomed in on his tear-streaked face. The boy finally stood, looking up at the confetti still falling. His voice cracked as he whispered into the microphone, "Thank you, Mama, we did it." The words carried through the hall. Simple but powerful. Sophia blew him a kiss, smiling proudly. For the first time in his life, Miguel felt truly seen. Not for his costume, not for his imitation of Elvis, but for the heart and soul behind his voice. That night, as he walked off stage, still holding his mother's hand, the silver pendant around his neck glinted softly under the fading lights. The cheers still echoed in the distance, and though he was still that same boy from the Philippines, in that moment, he had become something greater. A symbol of dreams that cross oceans, a voice that reminded the world that talent knows no borders.